Supposed biblical error. Did Mark not understand the custom of Jewish hand washing? Mark 7:3 says, "For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands properly," holding to the tradition of the elders. Bart Ehrman says about this verse, Mark 7:3 indicates that the Pharisees and all the Jews wash their hands before eating so as to observe the tradition of the elders. This is not true. Most Jews did not engage in this ritual. And perhaps Ehrman is right, since passages in the Old Testament say only the priests had to keep hand-washing practices. However, Ehrman has made an error of cherry-picking. He is keen to cite the Mosaic law on hand-washing, but ignores the fact that the Jews of the first century often added to the Mosaic laws, making them more strict. How do we know this? Well, we have other manuscripts which confirm this. The letter of Aristides from 200 BC says, "And as is the custom of all the Jews, they washed their hands in the sea and prayed to God." Philo in 30 AD stated, "The law does not look upon those who have even touched a dead body, which has met with a natural death, as pure and clean, until they have washed and purified themselves with sprinkling and ablutions." We also have archaeological evidence of this custom being extended to all the Jews during the Second Temple era. Susan Haber says, "The centrality of impurity to Jewish life in the Second Temple period is supported by archaeological evidence. The discovery of mikvot in such diverse places as Gamala, Sepphoris, Herodium, and Masada suggests that in Palestine, the removal of impurity was not a rite reserved only for approaching the sacred precincts of the temple, but was common practice for Jews of all walks of life." So Mark's statement about the Jews washing themselves fits right in there with the textual and archaeological evidence. So if we don't cherry pick our data, this supposed error can be resolved.
Okay, so the issue is about the practice of washing hands, is it? Interesting. It is interesting when I heard this part, right? Because this video was made 7 years ago, and yeah, of course, Palestine issue is decade, years old. It has been there for decades, but the argument with regard to there's no Palestine, etc., from some Christian is quite interesting nowadays. And then when I heard this video citing some scholarly writing perhaps about in Palestine, etc., so that's just interesting with the recent or current climate, even though this is outside of the topic, right? Anyway, so on the topic itself, I do not have anything to add or even to ask. But I do assume, my first assumption, because I don't know history as I mentioned before, right? But my first assumption is for those who really follow or kind of follow a tradition that perhaps is started by a prophet. So I assume Jews is within that context. I'm not sure why I assume that, but I tend to assume that, right? Meaning that a group of people that have some tradition that maybe somehow related to the prophet of the time should have certain things that relates to like kind of cleanliness, right? Because I do believe that every prophet would have that kind of teaching, right? Just like when Muhammad SAW come as a prophet, the issue of if you see the history where there's a plague, there's health issue, etc., on the West, and over the Islamic side, because that's the issue, the cleanliness becomes a routine, becomes a central issue, right, in terms of washing your hands, washing yourself, etc. While on the other side, in the dark ages, even the basic hygiene is problematic, etc., etc., right? So I assume those But now I'm thinking about it, because the Dark Ages, there's a Christian there. They also originate one time from the Prophet. So maybe they have left those things behind. So maybe the same can be said with the Jews. So as I'm speaking, I'm deconstruct my assumption. Anyway, that's beside the point. So anything you want to add, feel free to do so. Thank you for watching. See you next time.